I want to tell you something that most people would be too embarrassed to say out loud. I have never owned a stick of deodorant in my life. Not one. I am past 50 years old. I have raised children. I have worked in gardens and kitchens and barns in the heat of summer, and I have never once rubbed one of those store-bought sticks under my arms. And here is the part that makes people lean in a little closer when I say it. I do not smell. The folks who sit beside me in church do not lean away. My grandchildren still climb into my lap and press their faces against my shoulder. My clothes, when they come in off the line, smell of sun and wind and nothing else. People hear that and they do not believe me. They think I must be hiding something, or that I have simply stopped noticing my own smell the way some older folks do. But I want you to stay with me for the next little while, because what I am going to share with you is not a secret in the way people think of secrets. It is just something the world forgot. My mother knew it. Her mother knew it. And by the time you are done listening, you will know it too. Let me start with the thing nobody wants to talk about. There comes an age, somewhere after 50, sometimes after 60, when a person begins to smell different. You have noticed it, maybe on a relative, maybe on a coat hanging in a closet, maybe, if you are honest, on yourself. It is not a dirty smell exactly, it is something else. A little sour, a little stale, something that no amount of showering seems to wash all the way out. And the world has a cruel little name for it, which I will not repeat, because I do not think people should be shamed for getting older. But you know the smell I mean. Now here is what the doctors will tell you, and they are not wrong. As a body ages, it begins to produce more of a certain substance on the skin. The fancy people who study these things call it nonanol. It comes from the oils in your skin breaking down differently than they did when you were young. And here is the cruel trick of it. That smell does not wash away with ordinary soap. It clings. It settles into fabric. It lives in the collar of a shirt and the inside of a hat. So a person can shower twice a day, scrub until their skin is raw, spray themselves with perfume, and still carry it. And the worst part is, they often cannot smell it themselves, because we go nose-blind to our own scent. So they walk through the world never knowing, while everyone around them takes a small step back. That is the thing the deodorant companies will never tell you, because their whole business is built on covering a smell, not stopping one. You walk into any store and you see that long aisle, shelf after shelf of sticks and sprays and roll-ons, every one of them promising to keep you fresh. And what do they actually do? Two things. They clog up the little openings in your skin so you cannot sweat, and they pour a heavy perfume on top of whatever is already there. That is it. That is the whole science of it. Block the sweat, mask the smell. And I want you to think about how strange that is. Sweat is not the enemy. Sweat is one of the cleanest things your body does. It is the way your body carries out what it does not need. When you stop it up with aluminum, which is what is in most of those sticks, you are not solving anything. You are putting a cork in a bottle and wondering why it eventually overflows. The smell does not come from sweat itself. Fresh sweat has almost no smell at all. The smell comes from what happens to the sweat after it sits on the skin, mixed with the oils and the things you have eaten, and is left there too long under a layer of perfume that traps it all in. So the modern way is this: stop the body from doing its natural work, then drown the result in fragrance, then wonder why by the end of the day there is a sour note underneath the flowers. And as a person ages and the oils change, that sour note gets stronger and the perfume gets heavier to cover it, and round it goes. I have watched it happen to people I love. Good, clean, careful people who scrub and spray and still cannot understand why they do not smell the way they used to. Now let me tell you how we do it, and I want you to notice how simple it is, because the simplicity is the whole point. I learned all of this at my grandmother's side, the way most things worth knowing get passed down. I can still see her standing at the basin in the early morning light, her sleeves rolled up, showing me with her own hands what to do and what not to do. She was a tiny woman, bent a little with the years, and she lived to be very old. And I want you to know, right up until her last days, that woman smelled of clean linen and a little of the lavender she kept in her drawer, and nothing else. No sourness, no staleness, none of what people have come to expect from the very old. The nurses who came near the end remarked on it, how a woman her age could be so fresh. They thought it was some special thing. It was not. It was a lifetime of the same plain habits I am about to give you, done faithfully, every day, for 90 years. That is the proof I carry with me. I watched a woman grow as old as a person can grow, and never once carry that smell. And she did it with nothing you could not find in your own kitchen. She used to tell me that the body is not the enemy, and the smell is not a punishment. The smell, she said, is just a message. It is the body telling you that something is sitting too long where it ought to be moving. And once you learn to read that message instead of covering it up, you never have to fear it again. I have carried those words my whole life, and I have found them true in every season of it. The first thing, and this is the foundation of all of it, is that we wash the right places, often, with very little. We do not take long, hot showers every single day. In fact, most of us bathe far less than you might think. And I know how strange that sounds to modern ears, because the world has taught you that more washing means more clean. But it is not so, and I will tell you why. When you stand under that hot water every single day and scrub your whole body with strong soap, you strip away the natural oils that protect your skin. And your skin, frightened, makes more oil to replace what was taken, faster and heavier than before. So the more you scrub, the more your skin works against you, and the more there is to turn sour by the end of the day. You are caught in a wheel of your own making, but every single day, morning and evening, we wash the few places where smell actually begins. Under the arms, the folds of the skin, the feet. That is where the warmth and the dampness collect, and that is where the trouble starts. A basin of water, a plain cloth, and a moment of attention to those places does more than an hour under a hot spray that strips the skin and leaves the rest untouched. You do not need to scrub your whole self raw every day. You need to tend the few places that matter, and tend them faithfully. Once or twice a week, a full bath is plenty. The rest is the daily tending of those few warm places, and the skin in between is left alone to keep its own protection, the way it was made to. The second thing is what we put on the skin instead of those store-bought sticks. And here is where my grandmother would smile, because it costs almost nothing. The first is plain baking soda. Just a small amount dusted lightly under the arm after washing and drying. It does not block your sweat. It does not perfume you. What it does is change the skin so that the things which cause smell cannot grow and multiply there. Because that is the real source of body odor, those tiny living things that feed on the sweat and the oil. Baking soda makes the skin a place where they simply cannot thrive. A pinch in the morning and you are done. No aluminum, no clogging, no heavy scent, just a quiet, clean skin that does its work and carries no smell. Now some skin is tender, and for some people pure baking soda is a little too strong if they use too much. So my mother taught me to soften it. You take a small amount of baking soda and you mix it with a little cornstarch, the same plain cornstarch you would thicken a gravy with. The cornstarch keeps the skin dry, and the baking soda keeps it clean, and together they are gentle as anything. Some women I know add the smallest bit of a soft oil to make it into a kind of cream, but truly you do not even need that. A little powder patted on is enough. The third thing, and this is the part the world has forgotten most of all, is the herbs. Long before there was a store to walk into, there were the things that grew right outside the door. Sage is the great one. We hang it to dry, and a strong tea of dried sage, cooled down and dabbed under the arms, will stop a person from smelling all the day long. Sage actually calms the sweat itself, slows it without poisoning the skin to do it. Then there is lavender, which not only smells clean and gentle but keeps the skin from going sour. And there is plain apple cider vinegar, watered down, wiped on the skin and let to dry. You think it would smell of vinegar, but it does not. The vinegar smell lifts away as it dries, and what it leaves behind is skin that simply will not turn. These are not strange things. These are things that grow in a kitchen garden or sit on a pantry shelf. My whole life, these are what stood where your deodorant stick stands now. But I told you at the start that the real answer goes deeper than what you rub on your skin. And now I will tell you the part that matters most, especially for those of us who are older. The smell of a person does not come only from the outside. It comes from the inside, from what we put into ourselves day after day, year after year. I have watched the way people eat now, and I do not say this to be unkind. The food comes in boxes and bags, full of things that were made in a factory, heavy with sugars and oils that the body was never meant to carry. And all of that has to come out somewhere. It comes out through the skin. A body fed on that kind of food sweats out that kind of smell. The skin can only carry away what you give it. We have always eaten plainly. Vegetables from the garden, bread we baked ourselves, meat we raised, water from the well. Not because we were trying to smell clean, but because that is simply how we lived. And one of the quiet gifts of living that way is a body that does not turn sour, even as the years pile up. Drinking plain water is a great part of it, too. So much of that stale, concentrated smell in older folks comes from a body that is simply too dry. When you do not drink enough water, everything your body needs to carry away becomes stronger and heavier, including the smell of it. An older person especially stops feeling thirsty the way they once did, and so they drink less, and slowly everything in them grows more concentrated. We drink water all through the day, plain and simple, and it carries the body's troubles away gently, instead of letting them sit and grow strong. And then there is the cloth itself. I told you my clothes come off the line smelling of nothing but air, and there is a reason for that beyond the washing. We wear natural cloth, cotton, linen, wool, cloth that breathes and lets the air move through and lets the skin dry. So much of what people wear now is made of those slick synthetic threads, the kind that hold the warmth and the damp right against the skin and never let it air out. That is a perfect little home for everything that causes smell. And worse, those synthetic cloths hold the smell themselves. You can wash them, and that sour note never fully leaves, because it has soaked into the very thread. Natural cloth lets it all go. It airs out on the line, the sun and wind take the rest, and it comes back clean all the way through. There is one more place I have not spoken of yet, and it is the one people forget most often, and it troubles older folks more than any other: the feet. As a person ages, the feet are very often where the smell takes hold first and worst, and almost nobody thinks to tend them. The feet sweat all day shut up inside shoes, and those shoes are so often made of the same slick synthetic material I warned you about, holding the warmth and the damp against the skin hour after hour. An older person who cannot bend so easily anymore stops washing between the toes the way they should, and the trouble settles in and grows. So here is what we do, and it is no different in spirit from the rest. Every night the feet get washed in plain water and dried all the way, between every toe, not left the least bit damp. A little baking soda goes into the shoes themselves, dusted right inside, to keep them dry and clean between wearings. And we never put a foot into a shoe 2 days running. The shoes get a full day to air out by the door before they are worn again, so they are never damp when you slide your foot back in. Wool socks, never the slippery kind, because wool carries the moisture away from the skin instead of trapping it against it. Do these few small things and the feet stay as clean as the rest of you. Neglect them, and all the care in the world above the ankle will not save you, because that smell rises and fills a room as surely as any other. And while I am speaking of the parts people forget, let me mention the scalp and the hair, for this troubles the old as well. The oils of the scalp change with age, the same as the oils of the skin, and an old head of hair, especially under a hat worn all day, can turn just as sour as an old coat. We do not wash our hair every single day, far from it, but when we do, we use very little, and we let the scalp truly dry before we cover it. A hat or a covering put on over damp hair is a small, warm trap for everything you do not want. Air the hair, air the head covering, let the sun touch both when it can. The same plain rules, applied to the one place people never think to apply them. We wash the few places that matter, faithfully, with plain water. We dust the skin with baking soda or a little sage or vinegar instead of stopping it up with aluminum and perfume. We eat plainly, and we drink our water so the body is not carrying a heavy load to begin with. And we wear cloth that breathes and lets the skin be skin. That is the whole secret. There is nothing in it you could not begin this very week. And I want to say one more thing to those of you who are older, because I know some of you have been carrying a quiet worry about this very subject. Maybe a grandchild said something once. Maybe you caught it on your own coat one cold morning. Maybe you have been buying stronger and stronger sprays, trying to stay ahead of something you cannot quite name. I want you to hear me. It is not your fault, and it is not simply the price of growing old. It is the way modern life works against your body. It feeds you what your body cannot clean, dresses you in cloth that traps what little your body does release, and then sells you a perfume to cover the result. Of course it goes sour. Anyone's would. But you can step out of that whole arrangement the same way we never stepped into it. Wash the places that matter. Trade the stick for a little baking soda and a handful of sage. Drink your water. Eat as plainly as you can manage. Put on cloth that breathes. And give it 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, and notice what your collar smells like, what your pillow smells like, what your own skin smells like when you are nose blind no longer. I am past 50, and I have never owned a deodorant, and I tell you that not to boast, but to prove to you that it can be done, that it has been done, by women like me for longer than this country has had a name. The clean skin you remember from when you were young is not gone forever. It was never about being young. It was about living in a way that lets the body do its work and does not get in the way of it. That is all we ever did. And that is all I am asking you to try. If you have ever worried about this, even quietly, even just once, I would like to hear about it. Tell me down below how old you were when you first noticed it, on yourself or on someone you loved. I read every one, and there is no shame in any of it here. We are all just people trying to grow old with a little dignity, and there is no kinder place to learn that than from the old ways.